Okay, moving right along here, we're going to create another scene. This time we're going to create kind of like an author, but it's just going to be another banner that we can use with graphics. So we're going to build this using all the built-in parameters from within Viz. I have a snapshot of it here, so I'm going to just show you the image of what we're actually going to be building. I'm going to drag it into the background image, and here you can see it's a banner. It's made up of a couple of Noggis, a rectangle, and here's another Noggi again. We got the logo and the two text lines that we're going to create as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene. I'm in the server. I hit my design tutorial folder that I'm working in. I'm in my S tab. I'm going to right click and create a new scene, and let's just call this like news banner, and we'll click OK. It creates a thumbnail for us, and we'll double click to open this scene. Immediately I'm just going to go ahead and drag my background image in here. So I'm in my scene settings, and I just take the picture of the anchor and drag it into our background image. I'm going to come over to my scene tree and begin again by adding a top level group. So I'll just rename this group to News Banner Group. I'm going to begin by going into my built-ins, into the geometry plugins, and I'm just going to use a rectangle here. So I'm going to slide this down. Again, if you want to organize this further by regrouping these into other containers, you can. Let's just call this backplate again, and I'll rename the rectangle as well. So let's call this just back. I'm going to click on my rectangle. I want it to stretch all the way across the screen. So our width, let's type in like 750. Our height will adjust roughly down to about 65 or so. I'm going to reposition this. So I'm going to go into my transformation editor, click on the Y, and just move the Y position down here. I'm going to go back into my rectangle, and I'm just going to use the vertex colors here to give this rectangle a color. So I'm going to turn on my Use Vertex Colors button on. I'm going to come into my first color swatch here, my upper left. I'm going to click on it, and I kind of want to make this gray to black. So I'm just going to come in here and make it all black, and I'm just going to copy these colors down onto it. So it's a little bit of red, so let me just recopy these down, and instead of making it gray this time, what I'm going to do is just kind of use the alpha here in the built-in rectangle to kind of adjust the alpha. So my upper left alpha I'm going to set at about 40. My lower left I'll do the same. You can see a little transparency here that's going on. I'm also going to add another group here, and let's throw our logo inside of here. So I'll go back into my server, into the images tab, grab my logo and throw it in a sub-container. I'll click on the transformation editor, move the position Y down, and we'll also move the position X left, and we'll just roughly put it right around our title area and safe area here if you have them on. Now another piece that I want here is to start building the headline. So I'm going to drag another group in to further organize it for myself, and I'm just going to call this headline group, and I'm going to use a couple of Noggis here to design this. So I'm going to grab a first Noggi here. I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to make this black, so I'm going to go into my server here. I'm going to click on my M tab, and I'm going to use this black material to color this. I'm going to click on the Noggi. I'm going to stretch this out to about 450 or so. We're going to make the height roughly around 45 for right now. I'm going to take the bevel down to 0 on each corner, and I'm going to set my stretch to -20. I'm then going to go into the transformation editor and move my Y position down a bit. Let's position this left to right around the logo here. And the height of my Noggi was a little off, so let me readjust this just to roughly about the same height as the rectangle. And if you want to adjust the width a little bit too, so I'm going to increase that out to about 500 and readjust the position to roughly right around there. So I'm going to add 2 more Noggis, and instead of going into the built-ins and dragging a Noggi down, I'm just going to copy this one. So I'm going to hold down C, click, and drag this. I don't want it black, so I'm going to go into my server and actually use this green swatch again and drag this onto it. I'm going to get rid of the material by dragging that to the trash can. And I'm going to rearrange my Noggi here. So I'm going to click on my Noggi and go into the editor. I want the width to be a little bit less, so I'm just going to decrease the width to like 475 perhaps. We're going to readjust the height a little bit, and we're just going to move this down a little bit as well. Now the Noggi, I'm going to bevel the top left. So here under the bevel top left, we're just going to readjust this to, let's say, about 20, and I don't want the stretch anymore, so I'm going to reset that back to 0. Maybe we'll bevel this up to about 30. So again, I'm just going to reposition this on the X a little bit, moving it left, and I'm going to go into my image editor here, and I'm just going to scale this up so that we don't see those black lines. So this is, instead of doing it on the locked, I have it set to single, so I'm just going to single scale it on the X, and then again take my single scale Y down a little bit. I'm going to copy this Noggi once more by holding down Control, clicking and dragging. I'm going to come into my images, and I'm going to replace the green image with the white image. I'm going to come into my transformation editor. I'm going to move this position left a little bit. Let's readjust the height just a tiny bit so that we'll see a little bit of the top and the bottom. Now I also realize that I want to make my Noggi of the green Noggi a little bit wider so that it sticks out a little bit towards the right. So I'm going to increase this width. Again, let's just go to 500, and we're going to reposition this a little bit to the left. And you can see how the edges are fading off here, so I'm going to increase the size on the X of my green image. All right, I'm just going to turn my bounding box off for a minute so we can see it without the lines. Now if I come back into my scene settings, I'm just going to drag this image in here again so we can take a look at what it looks like. I'm going to hide my news banner. So you can see we still need this subline here. I'll replace my background image again. I'll turn my news banner back on. What we need to do is move our whole banner up. So I'll just click on this top level group, the news banner group, and slide the X or the Y position up a bit. I'm going to come over to my scene tree, create a new group, and we're going to call this our subline. I'm going to go into my built-ins, drag another Noggi down as a subcontainer of this subline. And again, we're going to click on the Noggi, and we're just going to make some adjustments within the Noggi. The width, let's say it's about 500. The height could be about 40. We're going to take our bevels down to 0 first, and I'm going to just set my stretch to 0. Now this time I want to bevel the bottom left. So I'm going to go ahead and increase this to about 20 as well. And I'm going to go into the transformation editor and move the position down here just to the bottom of our banner. Before I go any further, I'm going to go back into my server. I'm going to use one of these black images here to texture my subline. So let's try BG1. I'm just going to slide this down. Looks okay. I'm going to click on the mapping parameter here. So I'm going to click on the little image, and I'm just going to increase the scaling here. Instead of doing it on the single, I'm going to lock it and increase it that way. So now we have a little bit of a texture in our Noggi down here as well. I'm going to come into the transformation editor and readjust the position X here. So you see it's kind of lining up here. I think it's good enough, so we can move on to adding the text. So now I'm going to add another group in here, and we're just going to call this one text group. We'll go into our server, into our font tab, and drag our font down. First text I want to do is our headline, so I'm going to go ahead and just rename this to headline. I'm going to use a black material to give it a color, so I'm going to slide the black material on it. I'm going to go into the little ABC icon or the text editor and change the text here. So I'm just going to type in headline text. I'm going to change my type to texture again. Click on my transformation editor, reposition this over the white bar. So right now it's behind it. I just need to adjust the Z position up 1 or 2 so it doesn't interfere. We can move this over and scale it down however size you want. We're going to try something like that. And again, since we need to give control to someone, we're going to make sure that they don't type outside of these boundaries. So we're going to use that plugin called Max Size again. So I'm going to go into my built-ins, my container plugins, my tools folder, and drag this Max Size onto my headline. Again, it readjusted that text, so I'm going to come into the Max Size plugin and readjust my default X scale down to about 6 and my Y scale down to about 6 or 7 as well. Let's try 7. And we're going to set the maximum width here. Let's just do a random number of 750. We'll come into our text and type, and 750 is too much. So let's come down to maybe about 630, and let's try that. So I have my default text here. As soon as it hits that little point, it'll start to shrink. All right, so we have that set up. Now we're going to add a subline text here. So I'll go back into my server, into the font tab, drag another text down into this text group. We can rename this one, call it subline. And the order in the scene tree here doesn't really matter because it's all dealing with Z space. So I'm just going to reposition my text here on the Y and on the Z, also on the X as well. So let's reposition wherever you want it, and you can scale it down to the size you want as well. So I'm going to come into my text container. Let's change the text here. This is going to be our subline text. I'm going to change our type from geometry to texture again. And I'm just going to cheat and use the same max size. So I'm just going to copy it from our headline to our subline. You see that adjusts it a little bit. And now I'm going to go into the max size, and I'm hold down Control, and it will allow us to click this by 0.1s. So instead of going down a whole number, I'm just going to go down a little bit. So I hold down Control and click these little dials, and it gives us a little bit more control over that. If I come into my text control here, I can come in and type, and it roughly hits that right edge, and it starts to shrink. So I have this all set up. It's designed. Now I just need to animate it. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this scene a while, and our next step is going to be to animate it.